All right, everybody, Mr. B here. I wanted to go over your earthquake design projects, which you're going to be starting really whenever you want. This is a design project. So while there are a few questions, I think 5 at the end you have to do, the reality is, the reality is this is going to be a project you can do on your own. So that being said, normally I do these in groups, but seeing as you're not in groups, please get your parents for some help. Just really take it one day at a time. It's not a massive rush to get these completed. Now, when you open up your packages, you're going to find some materials. But before we even get into those materials, let's get into the outline here. So I'll have this posted to the website, but this is the Earthquake Tower Challenge. So you and your partner have been hired as a structural engineer in charge of designing a new 2-story art building. There are many building codes you must follow. Each floor of the building must support at least 250 grams of weight. Now you might say to yourself, well, how do I do that at home? Well, if you have what I usually use is sandbags. I fill up a little Ziploc bag with sand as a way to test it. Now you may be able to do this at home, but you could just use some, rocks or anything you want, really. And if you have a scale to measure it, that would be great. But if not, I usually say it's kind of just put it in your hand. If it feels a little bit heavy, you're probably good to go. Now, the building will be located near an earthquake fault. Therefore, your building must be able to withstand both small and large earthquakes. Since the building will be used for art classes, you may be as creative as you like with the shape and design of the building. It does not need to be a box shape. So remember, this is an art building that you're designing. So it can be it could be triangular, it could be circular, it can be any shape you want it to be. Now, you are going to be limited to certain supplies, okay? Now, on your sheet here, it says some of them, but I've given you additional ones. So the first thing you're going to have is a cardboard base, approximately 25 by 25 centimeters. So you're going to get this base here. It's kind of a thicker material. It's basically a presentation board, but it's easy enough that you could poke through it if you need to, because you probably will. But you'll get one of these bases. Now, please be careful, because I do have some spares that you could pick up, but try not to wreck these. And if you do, you could just use regular cardboard. It's just a bit flimsier. You're going to be getting straws. Now, it says here 30. I think I tried to give everyone, I think I gave everyone 20, just because I didn't have enough and I didn't want to go to Dollarama to buy more. So you're going to be getting a package of straws that look like this, okay? Now, if you have some extra straws at home, feel free to use them, but don't go crazy and use like tons more, okay? Now, it says here 100 paper clips. I did not have 100 paper clips to give everybody. I gave you a handful, and they're the large paper clips that look like this, okay? 20 pins. Now, inside your packages are going to be some push pins. They just look like your standard... my apologies, I thought I had them here. They're just your standard pins that look like that. Okay. Now, I also gave you some rubber bands, so you could use these rubber bands for whatever you feel you need to. I also gave you some tape, so everyone's going to get a roll of Scotch tape right there. And I've given everyone an eraser. Some of them are weird shaped, and some of them just look like others. And lastly, I gave some string. Okay, so these are the additional materials that you could use. Now, the project is, there are some instructions, so follow them when you're building. The first thing is, your building must fit on the base. So it has to fit on this base. It doesn't need to be the whole base. It can only just be the middle part, but it has to fit on this base. It has to be attached to the base, which means you need to somehow find a way, using the materials I've given to you, to attach this to the base. Now, I'm going to give you a tip at the end of this video for that, so watch if you want to see it. Your building must be at least 36 centimeters tall. So grab a ruler at home, hopefully you have one, and you can measure about 36 centimeters. That should be the height of your building. And it has to have 2 stories, each one being approximately 18 inches tall. Okay? Centimeters. So it has to have 2 stories. So story 1 and then story 2. And each one has to be roughly 18. If it's a little bit off, that's okay. Each story must be able to support the sandbag. So what you want to do as you start to build is to sort of test a little bit of weight on each story to make sure that it will hold it. So 1 here in the middle and then 1 on the top. Now, You also want to have a drawing of what your structure is going to look like that's labeled. So make sure that's one thing you do when you submit this is you have a drawing of what your structure might look like. Now, you could change. So let's say you do kind of a rough drawing. You may change that drawing. It doesn't matter as long as you had something to begin with or even something at the end. And there's going to be some questions that you're going to have to answer at the end, just some analysis questions. They're all right here on the back. If you flip it over, you'll see here, these questions need to be answered during the end. Or sorry, at the end. And I do have a shaker board here, which is how I'm going to test these. So when you're done, I'm going to get you to drop them back off at the school, and I'm going to videotape and test them so you can see which one was able to survive the longest. Now, some hints and tips. Plan carefully. I'm not going to be giving you any extra supplies. Now, I can't monitor you at home, but I would hope that you try to stick to what I give you. Remember these words, measure twice, cut once. So be careful when you cut because you're not going to be getting any more supplies. Try building with the pins first and then add them as you need to go. So here's that tip I was telling you about. One thing you can do to your base is you can take a straw and you could take yourself a pin. Now, these pins are really good at pushing through. So what you could do is push through. I apologize, sorry for the amateur camera work. You could push through your straw, and then you can go right through your board. Now you can see the pin comes out the back here. Now you could do this with pliers or just with force. You could push that pin down to bend that pin. It takes a bit of trying, but if you have pliers at home or a wrench or something that will help you bend, you could bend that pin off and then you'll have yourself a nice connection there. Okay, and then you could start building from there, having your straw come up and building as the layers go on. Another thing that you could do with your paper clips is you can take them apart. Okay, so if you want to unravel the paper clip and use it as a way to tie or anything like that, you can do that. There's no problem with doing that. This can be a frustrating project for some, so take it one day at a time. Get some help from your parents. Message me if you have any questions about the project. This is not a project that's going to be due anytime soon. This is something you can work on when you have some spare time, when you have a day where you maybe finished your work a bit early. Turn to this and really work on this. If there's any other questions, message me on Remind, Zoom, or in Google Classrooms. Talk to you guys soon. Bye now.